Welcome to Scrappy to Scalable, the podcast where we explore human-centered AI designed to level the playing field, empowering small and mid-sized businesses to compete with the giants.
Hey, Michele, how are you?
I'm doing well. How about you?
I'm good. I'm really excited to chat with you today, partly because I have had a business coach my entire real estate career. I started very young, like 23, and then at 25, started with a professional real estate coach, went through that for a couple of years. I've had probably 6 or 7 real estate coaches in my real estate career. And I cannot express how important those lessons were that I had in coaching. And so I'm really excited to chat with you about your coaching business. So welcome to the podcast.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. And I have to say, I'm a bit jealous that you started at such a young age with having coaches. I grew up with a mom who was a teacher and she then became a coach. I saw some of the, she would share snippets of the stories of the breakthroughs that people would have. And even in my professional career, in my previous job before I became an entrepreneur, it was never an opportunity. It was always, a mentor or a boss, but never an executive coach or someone like that. So I really embrace that. And I love the fact that you've had one for so many years. So kudos to you.
My business partner at the time, she's like, I think this would be good for us. So we did it, and it really just sharpened the vision. So a lot of times when you're an entrepreneur or when you're in a business setting, like the goals seem so nebulous, whereas a business coach can really be like, okay, what's important? What are you doing? Put you on the right path. And they can see things that you can't.
Yes, that's something that I really enjoy with my clients, because sometimes I'm asking a question that it almost stumps them. They go, oh my gosh, I never thought of that. And then it opens up the floodgates for so many other thoughts and so many other ideas that, who thought it was possible? So I love that part of it.
So Michele, one of the things I loved about being coached myself is that oftentimes I had a vision of something, but it's so intangible. And coaches ended up helping me clarifying that vision and giving me a roadmap to follow, which was so, so helpful. And they also see things that I can't see within myself that were obstacles that I was putting in my own way. So I think that a coach is super helpful. Tell me your thoughts about how you do your philosophy on coaching.
Yes. So there's a listening part that I think is different from when you're telling your story and you're sharing your obstacle, and then the person on the other end is receiving it. Is sometimes I'm listening for words or things that may have come up in an earlier conversation, and then it helps create that question that gives that person that, oh my gosh, I never thought of that. And then all of a sudden they're off on another breakthrough. So those questions help to narrow down even further by kind of stringing along previous parts of the conversation that you're doing with your client, or that I do with my client, I should say.
Yeah, it sounds like I don't have any training in this in particular, but like NLP, neuro linguistic programming.
Yes.
Do you,
It's
it
it's
sounds,
easier
it
to
sounds,
say NLP.
NLP. I know it's so much easier, but that sounds very much kind of what you're listening for. Like specific words mean certain things when you're saying them.
Yes.
And so you have to listen in a different way when you're coach, I'm sure.
Yes. And sometimes they say things, I'm thinking of a particular client, and then a few conversations later, it's not exactly a contradiction, but it's almost like it's a conflict with what they said before. So then the question is bridging that, well, which one is true for you? Or which one are you battling and which one would you like to change? So that's kind of the listening that I kind of do with my clients is what did they say? What's maybe the conflict that they're dealing with? If the story that they're expressing or the situation they're expressing is not consistent, well, let's break that down and find out what's really going on there. So digging a little bit more under the hood.
That's so fascinating. I didn't think about that because you could have a point of view and you could have a direction you want to go, but then the next comment or the next statement or 3 statements down, you're putting your own roadblock in there, and you're the one being like, you're saying this, but you're putting this roadblock down. So let's remove the roadblock.
Yes. It's this, one of the things that I say a lot in my coaching is what's the story you're telling yourself? What are the facts of that story? And what's really going on that you can get rid of? What's truth and what's the lie that you possibly will be telling yourself? Or something I just wrote about is, you know, well, this is how it's always been, or this is how I was wired to be. And that's behavior that can be changed. It's just takes a little bit of practice and new habits to build in order to change those stories that you keep hanging on to.
One of my best friends she was in HR and then she's now an executive business coach, but somebody hired her because she's so amazing. And she always says, awareness creates choice.
Yes.
And I think that's a big part of coaching is like just making people aware that they're thinking a certain way or not.
Yeah, for sure. When you can recognize a behavior or a habit that doesn't serve you anymore, it's not that it's easier, but it's definitely a step in the right direction to change that behavior.
Now, tell me a little bit about what made you want to start your business.
Prior to starting my business in 2021, I was in travel and hospitality for many years. And in that role, I was a leader. I was a hiring manager for many years. I helped coach people who had their own business. We had independent contractors under our roof. And I also had employees that were managing teams, et cetera. So when things shifted, I definitely had to pivot in 2020, like many of us did.
So you were a pandemic casualty as well?
I was a pandemic casualty, and I have as somebody said it in 2021, because I started my business then. So you had a COVID baby business or something like that. I gave birth to a business and a COVID business. But yeah, so it was a time to, well, what do I do with the skills that I had and how do I make those transfer into something that I can still give back and be relative and relevant for people who are maybe struggling with their own professional journey. That's how that happened. After several certifications, when you start your business, just like many people do, I think even, the Jeff Bezos of the world also, you throw pasta up a wall, you see what sticks, and then you make edits along the way. And so that's been the journey for a few years. And now I work with, mostly people who are in that professional leadership role who are maybe stuck with some roadblocks and they need some clarity so they can create more opportunities for themselves and get further ahead.
Are you working with mostly corporations that are hiring you to like executive coach their leadership, or are you working with individuals or solopreneurs?
Yeah, I'm working with solopreneurs and individuals. It's not that I don't want to work with corporations. And if I do, I want to work with those who are smaller teams. I've come from big organizations. I have done some speaking engagements in big organizations. And while they have a lot of value and they definitely have the financial means, the budget, there's more red tape, if you will, and there's a lot of approval process and who gets chosen and things like that. And I feel that as a small business owner myself, there's a little bit more creativity, flexibility, I would say availability to do things and curate things that fits their needs better.
It's a little bit more bespoke versus like moving a giant corporation.
That's the word, bespoke.
Yeah.
For sure.
Well, that seems like a really great, valuable tool. Like what are the big things that you work with your solopreneurs? Like what is the main thing that you see over and over again in a lot of your clients?
Self-doubt. They are very successful. Several of the clients I work with are in a VP position or, their own boss, their own business. Self-doubt does not discriminate. And so it shows up at any given time. It can show up more often than not. And so we work through what's that story that you keep holding on to and what are the facts that support that story. And more often than not, sometimes it's a process, but more often than not, you find that the facts are not there that supports the story that they tell themselves, that they are either not up to the task, not good enough, or won't be able to accomplish this. And who am I to be in this room asking for X, Y, and Z? And so we work
Sounds like
through
imposter
those.
syndrome to me.
Yes, it is. Yes, it is. And there's been so much about imposter syndrome, about, finding the cure and, getting rid of it. And you don't get rid of it. It's not a cure. It's not It's not a disease. It's not a condition. It's a behavioral pattern that we all seem to have. And I look at it as how do we manage it so that it doesn't keep us frozen for too long? Because when it does show up, you have choices. You have a choice to either wallow in it, if you picture the person hiding underneath the bed kind of thing, or you can say, oh, you're here. Nice for showing up. I'm not in the mood for you today. I've got this, and, keep going on. That's adding a little humor to it. But there are things that I go through with my clients to help them move through that so that they're not stuck for too long.
It just seems like something that happens to so many people. And I like how you said, I'm not going to get rid of it because as you grow, the new imposter syndrome comes in.
That's for
It
sure.
doesn't stop. It's just like, okay, I've mastered this level of imposter syndrome. And then all of a sudden you start to grow and you get to another level, and then that whole thing happens all over again.
Yes, absolutely. When you learn new things, I think I wrote something a while ago that talked about the chemical reaction that we have when we are afraid, when we're fearful, is the same chemical release that happens when we're excited. And
Yes,
so
I've read that.
when we are learning something new and we have no clue of how to do something, you could either sit in fear and have that excitement take you, that chemical reaction take over. And fear is not a terrible thing. It doesn't have to be so negative. I mean, people get on roller coasters, they're afraid as can be, but they enjoy the ride all the way up, all the way down. But when you think of I'm learning something new, take AI, for example. It's new to a lot of people. I spoke even a year ago, we were like, ooh, what is this? And Big Brother, all kinds of negative. But when you start to learn and use it and see the results, it gets exciting. And it's just, okay, I'm still not a subject matter expert, but it's working well for me as much as I've learned. But like you said, imposter syndrome is going to show up again the next day. I don't know how to do this. And then you just keep going.
It is pretty remarkable what AI is doing to the world.
Yeah.
It is really changing the way that we do business, the way that we produce content, the way that we do everyday mundane tasks can now
Yep.
be done with AI to facilitate and make it so much more efficient. But that's scary to a lot of people. So I assume, just like with our business, like we're implementing AI solutions into companies, like for your business, like, do you have to do a lot of the educating people on why it's important to have a coach? Is that part of your content that you're producing, or how are you attracting your clients? Like
Yeah, that's a
what
very
makes
good
people want to
question.
follow you?
I produce some newsletters. I'm active on LinkedIn. I create content. LinkedIn has changed its, algorithms and its dynamics. So a couple of friends of mine who are entrepreneurs, we all kind of talk and say it's like being on a big stage with like 20 million of your closest friends, and you're trying to wave your hand to say, hey, mom, I'm over here. And no one's seeing you. I think that someone said it best to me is creating content is so that there's visibility and credibility, but it's not going to guarantee anything. Several of my clients I have gotten through referrals. I've had a few successes with LinkedIn, and I've actually had a few successes with live networking events, which has been really special because I have those clients today.
Where are you located?
I'm in northern New Jersey. I'm in Hackensack, New Jersey. So the tri-state area is really, it's funny, the tri-state area, but I have people who are in Texas, North Carolina,
That's the beauty about coaching. You can coach
Connecticut,
anybody anywhere.
New York, New Jersey. It doesn't matter. But it's interesting that I use AI to help me navigate and create things so that I can do that outreach. And I do it this way. I create content. I create messaging. I create my newsletters in my own thoughts and ideas. I do a data dump and do as best as possible because I want some of that storytelling aspect of it, which AI is never going to be able to do. And I throw it into AI and I kind of say, okay, refine this, or here's the goal, here's your role, what 3 things, and it just refines what I've already written. And then I edit again. That would have taken me 2 years ago when I was writing content. content and I put out a monthly newsletter. By the time I put out July's newsletter, the day after, I'm already thinking about, well, I need 31 days to write my August newsletter. And now it's like, now I need a week. I write from ideas that come immediately. It's like, oh, that's a great idea. And then I take it from there and I just do a huge data dump and then use AI to help polish it up.
Yeah, that's great.
Yeah.
Do you do any, I assume for your business,
Yes.
like part of it is teaching people why they need a coach, or do you already have people that are like, yeah, I've bought into a coach. I just need to find the right one.
I know you asked that question before, and I kind of stayed away from that because I don't really sell that way. And maybe I should. I mean, that maybe I should be so blunt and say, this is why you need me,
Sure.
I
I'm just
kind of,
curious. Like,
yeah, I kind of, when I'm writing, it's about giving thought to ideas and giving, food for inspiration, talking about some of the pain points that we may have in leadership, talking about what are some ideas that you can do. When I have had a client on the phone, a prospect, let's say, I have asked the question, have you worked with a coach before? What are your expectations? What do you hope to gain? And usually the first thing is also, well, what are 3 goals that, you've tried to reach and you're having trouble with? And here's how we would work together. So I have a very casual approach, I guess you can say, because it's trust and relationship first. I think there's a lot of people on LinkedIn. I get it all the time. I get people who, oh, here's how we can increase your business and get you to 6, 7 figures. And, it's not all about that. It's about making a relationship and having an inspirational impact and working relationship with a client versus this is why you need one. Some people,
yeah,
even when they do need one, they don't recognize that they do.
yeah, it's very relationship
It's
forward,
very relationship.
relationship driven,
Yes,
and they figure
absolutely.
out if they like you and your vibe based on what you put out. So
Yep.
like you're attracting people based on your thoughts, your ideas about certain topics, how to overcome certain things. I think it's great.
Yeah.
What do
But I
you,
do like your idea. I may have to switch it up a little bit.
I think that there's always an aspect of education that 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 any business needs to do depending on who they're trying to attract,
Absolutely.
because an executive, if they're a good coachable executive, which is probably who you want to attract, they're going to be open to the idea of coaching anyway. And they just need a little nudge like, hey, if you're having this problem, I can help you with the solution, because
Yes.
this is a common problem I see with all of my clients. And like, speaking of which, like, I assume that you're dealing with a lot, because I've done a ton of this work with myself, and I have limiting beliefs that I still have in my life that I'm still working through, even 47 years later. I assume you're dealing with a lot of like limiting beliefs and how to get over those with your clients.
Yes. And when they have breakthroughs, it's amazing because then it
I'm
leaves
sure.
space for more insight into how this controls them in other areas. I have a couple of clients who, they've led a certain way. They either they're an individual contributor, or a leader and have direct reports, and they've been good in those roles. There's nothing wrong with it. But they seem to struggle with maybe a communication aspect of that role. And so what's the limiting belief is, again, going back to the story they tell themselves, well, this is how I've always been taught. This has been effective before. Like things evolve, like AI now, so should a leader or a professional should evolve in how they approach certain situations and not hang on to what they had before. I read something recently, I think it was this morning, as a matter of fact, that said, is although change, and I'm going to paraphrase it, although change is a gift for something new, change indicates a loss of something that you have to let go of. And so people who are comfortable, even when it's painful, even people who are in toxic work relationships, it's painful, they're miserable, but they hang on to it because it's comfortable at the same time.
That is really profound. When you said that, it made me feel something.
Yes.
'Cause
Oh, good.
because
It's working.
honestly, because like, if I'm being honest with myself, and like, I felt a tightness happening in my chest, because you're absolutely right. It is, when you change, you were losing something. It
Yep.
could be loss of something.
Yes,
And there's always a grieving process when you lose something.
for sure.
Even if what you're losing, the benefit is so much better for the change,
Yes.
there is a moment where you have to like grieve that loss and then get on the right path. And I never have thought of it that way. That's a really good quote.
Yeah, well, the response that you had was very similar to what I had. I heard when I was reading it going, oh my gosh, it is a loss. And I think about people who have lost a job or, decide to move on to another job. It's exciting, the new, but the loss is, especially if you've been doing it for a long time, it's like you have to mourn that loss and you have to figure out how do you not bring those bad habits, those stories that don't serve you anymore into the new opportunity.
Honestly, it's kind of blowing my mind because that really that is a super profound. No one gets anything else from this podcast, just that right there, I think is gold, because you do have to, in order to really shift, in order to truly make a difference and a pivot in terms of your path or your mindset, you have to be willing to mourn that loss and then move on. Because if you never mourn it, those patterns never leave. Like you have to say goodbye, give your piece to it, and then go on that new path. I think that's really
Yeah.
profound.
Yeah. Maybe I'll start in my coaching, if there is that transition, because I've had several people who have new jobs or will be moving into a new job or even a new role. And maybe we need to have a memorial.
I love that idea because it's great idea.
It is. I
Honestly,
think so.
I've never heard that before, and I think that's really fascinating.
Yeah.
That
Yeah.
must be fun to see the impact that you have when you do when you guide people and they make those breakthroughs. That must be really, really satisfying.
It is. They're getting the value, but I look at it as every time one of my clients has that breakthrough, it's a celebration at the end of that call for me. It's inspirational for me that I was able to help facilitate somebody to see something new, see a new way of looking at something, or having that aha moment, like cracking the walnut and letting it go. I'm free from this box that I put myself into. So it's definitely rewarding to be a part of somebody's inspiring aha moment.
The other thing that I was thinking about while we were just chatting is like, when I first was doing my business coach, I was talking to my business coach about my personal stuff.
It happens all the time.
Well, because I was like, no, this is a business coach. But then all of the other stuff that I was talking about is all personal. And it is almost impossible to divorce your personal life because it's the same brain doing your personal life that's doing your business life. And if you don't, if you work on one, it benefits the other.
Absolutely.
I was really surprised that there was such a connection between business and personal because it's all up here.
Absolutely. And when last year I thought I would tap into some of the life coaching and, market that and everything. And I realized that it's not really necessary. I've not been a lifelong in that area. I feel like, there's certain people's backgrounds and experience lend themselves to be more in that space. But I do find that people will open up about personal things in the business coach calls, whether it be a relationship or parents or, children or whatever. So it does come up from time to time. And, just giving space for that. It's, when you think about having somebody who's lost a job, which I've had clients who have had that experience and, it's like, okay, help me find new, what am I working on, whatever. Um, there's a lot of fears that come up, and then there's the I'm not good enough and I'm not going to be good enough for my family. Those things have come up, and it's like, whoa, wait a minute. Let's kind of reel that back in and remember all the good stuff that you are to you and to yourself and to your family. So it does show up a bit, and some people take it and want to discuss that more, or they use one session for that, and then they get back on track with what they really want to focus on in their work life.
I'm sure there's moments where like, girl, I'm not a therapist. You need to see a therapist. Like I'm a business coach.
But one of the things that I have to say that I pride myself in is that I do have compassion for someone's grief of certain things. I work very flexible with my clients. We have our scheduled calls, but there's nothing wrong with sending me a text. If if you need to bounce on a call really quick, which happened just yesterday, as a matter of fact, and somebody's going through some stuff. And I just, this afternoon, I sent them a text to see how they were doing and, making sure that they're taking time for themselves. That's the life coaching that kind of comes in, is making sure that their well-being is intact.
Do I mean, your energy seems very warm, very open. Do you tend to
Thank you.
attract those type of people into your business as well?
Well, that's a good question. Yeah, well, it's funny. I don't want to say I don't section it out. I don't discriminate. I work with both men and women, but most of my clients are women. And when I think about who I'm coaching, they all seem to be very calm and mild. I have a couple of fiery ones who, we can really have a lot of fun with because of their personalities. But yeah, there's a warm side to most of them that's inviting, even
I mean,
for
I
me.
think that goes right back to, you attract who you
Yes.
are.
Yep.
So the more people see you, the more people see your energy, they either like you or don't like you, and they attract or they repel.
For sure. That's in any business, and even with jobs, I tell people, most of the time people don't leave the job. They leave because of the people, because it's not a good work environment. It's not a good relationship. And why nurture it any further than it has to be?
Do you work with a lot of executive leaders just on that subject alone, like how to manage people, how to influence subordinates, how to be a good leader? I assume
Yeah.
that a
I
lot of
have
people need.
I have in my past, outside of the umbrella of Hartmetrics, I have done that. And I have done that a little bit in my business. A few of the people who I have today are leaders who have direct reports, and these are new positions that they have come into working with me. They've been in leadership roles before. And so we do talk about some of the challenges that they have with what I'll say, the outliers or the more challenging employee. How do you navigate that? Talking about little sandbox skills and how to you can't change other people, but what you can do is change how you show up and how you work with that person. So since I don't know the other person and I'm not coaching them, I can only work with them, with my client, on how they approach these conversations with others. And so we, come up with some ideas of what's the best way to navigate those relationships. But in
I
my
like how you approach
past,
that too, because it's like, look, I can't change other people, but I can make sure that you are 100% responsible for how you show up.
absolutely. And how we
Because
show up is how others are going to respond to it.
yeah, and taking that full ownership of, this is the way I think, this is the way I think about them, this is the way I think about the situation. Take full ownership and full responsibility is the sign of a really good leader.
For sure. For sure. I've had some amazing leaders in my past, and then I've had some that I go scratched my head. So, having some self-awareness of how am I showing up that's making this relationship difficult is really powerful, because you
It's a hard,
can,
that's a hard thing to
it is hard.
get.
It is hard when you have to self-critic, be a critique of yourself and how you can be different. How do you listen differently? How do you work with that person differently? Yeah. And if you're not willing to change, it's just going to be hard all around.
But I always ask everybody on this podcast, what's a favorite thing about your business?
Well, the first thing is when somebody has that aha moment, that's almost celebration time for me. When they get off the call and they go, "Oh my gosh, that's great." And then they take that and run with it for, whatever. And then the next call comes up and you find out how did it all work out, and it worked out wonderfully. That's the favorite part, is when somebody has that breakthrough.
Yeah, I'm sure.
I think the other part is some of the things that I don't know if it's unique, but for me, I work with clients biweekly usually. And when I have those moments, something pops up and it has to do with their progress or whatever, and being able to then send them that message and say, thinking of you, and there's this great article or a great book, and sending it over to them. Like, those moments just kind of keep the conversation going even when it's not going. I enjoy
Yeah.
that.
Well, that segues perfectly to my next question. What is
Good.
your favorite book or a book that you're reading right now that you would recommend for business owners, business leaders who are looking for some improvement?
Well, excuse me. I read a couple of months ago, I finished reading Mel Robbins' book, Let Them, which is, I mean, it has both personal and business, but it's
Yeah.
such a powerful book. It really has to do with control and letting go of control and letting go of how you can change somebody else. Whereas instead of trying to change somebody else, change your approach to what the situation is. So Let Them was a great book. I'm reading something now that is written by a former NBC executive who was responsible for the success of the WWE. Her name is Bonnie, and I can't think of her last name. It's on my Kindle right now. The jury's still out if I enjoy the book or not, because she speaks very honest about certain things, but it's the 15 lies women are told in business, in the workplace. So it's very interesting, but there are some very good nuggets in there, and I'm like cheering it on. And then she says something else, and I go, I don't like that.
They're not gurus. Like,
They're
it's like
not
take what you can,
right.
learn from it, get rid of
Right.
the rest, right?
Yeah, and she's sharing her experience and her story. But yeah, I've had quite a few books. Last year, I think I read a lot more than this year. This year, I've been reading some non-business related books as well. But Let
Sometimes
Them
you
was
have to.
definitely, yeah, you have to
It's like,
disconnect from it all.
yeah, like I was reading book after book after book after book on business and improvement and self-awareness and improve. I was like, I was going a little crazy. So now for like the last year, I've been reading like fiction and dramas and historical dramas. And it's just nice just to let my brain relax a little
Yeah.
bit.
Absolutely. And I'm a big podcast listener, so I've been geeking out on Simon Sinek's A Bit of Optimism, and he's had some amazing guests on there and stories. So that's been really good. And then I also listen to HBR podcasts. So there's a couple of really good hosts on those shows as well.
I'll have to check out. I love Simon Sinek. I'll have to check his work out. I was
Yeah,
going to tell you there's a book that really, really affected me, and I told it to my business coach, and she told it to all her clients too. It's
well,
called
tell me, I have to write it down. What is it?
Yeah, this one, he's written a series of 5 books, I think, but this one called The Gap and the Gain
The
by Benjamin
Gap?
Hardy.
Oh, and the Game
Yeah,
by
Gap and the Gain. And it really transformed the way that I personally looked at my business and the way that I was looking at my life in general. Because the main premise of it was that when a lot of times high achieving people have this is my vision of this is my goal.
Yep.
And then I only got to here, so I'm a failure. Instead of that mentality, it's always looking back at where you started, and it changes the whole mentality of how you look at your success. And it
Absolutely.
really, really shifted a lot of people's mind in that coaching program that I was in, just because it made us feel way less like we were failures and more
Yes.
like, look at how far we've come. Look at the distance that we've come. And it just really shifted a lot. So I would totally recommend that as a business coach.
That sounds great. I think I must have subconsciously read it because I'm familiar with the author. But one of the things that I do in my coaching is making sure that we start out with celebrating the wins.
Love that.
Inevitably, I have one who always says, well, I didn't really have much. And then we're in the conversation and, well, this happened. Oh, that's wonderful. And then this happened. Really? That's great. Before you know it, you've got 5 wins on the table and you haven't had anything. And I have another client who she talks about, she's very driven and she's very successful in her own right. And she talks about, all the things that she's doing. And I go, well, where's the accomplishment tab in your book? I don't have one. Why not? Because you need one. You've accomplished a lot. And so it's getting them to recognize what are the milestones that you have taken care of, that you've achieved, that get you to the goal. Because every one of those is a win. It's the littlest things.
I mean, you're already doing this, so the Gap and the Gain will be like, yes, but
It'll be like a Bible.
Seriously, listen to it on Audible because he interviews this other coach that has been coaching for like 40 years. And
Okay.
the Audible is really interesting. You get little snippets that you don't get in the book. So I definitely recommend the Audible, but you will love that.
That's good. That reminds me, I have another Audible that I have to listen to that friend who's also a coach told me about, which is David Goggins' You Can't Hurt Me. Because I read the book, but I
Yeah.
heard that the Audible is like he does it as a podcast. So he's kind of interviewing his own self within the book. And that's
Well,
been
interesting.
long overdue for me to do it. But the book is really pretty amazing. I mean, he's a pretty awesome guy.
Okay.
So,
I'll have to I'll add that to my list.
yes, absolutely.
Well,
I'll send you
Michelle,
the link.
it's been a super nice chatting with you. I wish you the
Same.
best of luck. If somebody wants to work with you, what's the
Yes.
best way to get a hold of you? What's your website? And how can they start working with you?
Sure. Hartmetrics.com is the website.
HART, right?
HART, like Kevin Hart, hartmetrics.com. I have a contact page there. You can book a call, give me a little bit of insight as to what you're looking for. I'm very active on LinkedIn, so feel free to connect there or DM me. Yeah. And my email is michelle@hartmetrics.com.
Cool. Well, thank you so much. This is a lovely conversation. I learned a lot. The loss and change, that was my biggest
Loss and
takeaway.
change. Yeah, that's
So,
pretty awesome.
so good. So
Yeah.
I'm going to take that to my next. I'm gonna have a little funeral for my loss and then move on to my.
You'll have to tell me how it goes.
All right.
All right.
Thank you so much again. I appreciate it.
Thank you. It was great.
Now,
Great conversation. Thanks for having me.
yeah, absolutely.